Today I'm having some Xinjiang noodles. Um, Xinjiang is a province in the northwest of China. So actually, this restaurant um, doesn't specifically say that it's from Xinjiang. It actually is called Xibei. So Xi means west and Bei means north. So Xibei means northwest. Chinese reverses directions from the way that we say it in English. So you always say east or west first, and then you say north or south. So we would say, so where I live in English, we would say northeast. In Chinese, you say east north, which is Dongbei. And then so northwest would be west north, which is Xibei. And Xinjiang is in the northwest. Some other provinces can also be called Xibei, but this particular place is doing Xinjiang food. Right, it's got the halal mark on the thing, which I think Chinese is called Qingzhen. So Qing means clean or clear, and Zhen means true, like true or truly. So like truly clean is the translation for halal. Um, Today I'm having a thing called ban mian. I think I've had some other kinds of ban mian in the past on this channel. This one is just called Neuro ban mian, which is just beef. Neuro is beef, and ban mian just means noodles that you're supposed to mix up. You can see here they've got like this. It's just kind of a ground beef sauce kind of thing that you put on it, and then this has a bunch of scallion and stuff on top of the noodles. And then when you get it, you're just supposed to mix it all together. So I'm gonna go about mixing this all up. So the ban in ban mian means noodles, and ban actually means to mix something up. So it's called mixed noodles. But they don't mix it at the restaurant for you. They give it to you, all the ingredients, and then you mix it yourself. This is true. There's also a dish called ban fan, which is mixed rice. Fan is rice. So you can have ban mian or ban fan. This kind of dish actually is one of the things that reminds me the most of kind of Italian style noodles. It's similar to if you've ever had like an Italian noodle dish where it's not a cheese sauce, it's just maybe like a butter and meat kind of like some chopped up meat with butter on like noodles on spaghetti. This is very similar to that. It's just kind of a ground beef sauce with a bit of oil mixed in with it, and they've got some shallots here. Sometimes places do shallots or chive, or actually these are probably chives, not shallots. Or scallion. Sorry, that's the right word, scallion. In Chinese, they're all basically just called song. You can add up. So song means like anything basically in the onion family. And then there are modifiers you can add to before. So like a regular like white onion is called yang song. And then these are often just called song. I don't know if there's a modifier used with this, but then there's lots of other kinds of like something song. Let's see. Got all mixed together. Just kind of eat it. It's a very beef forward kind of dish. It's basically ground beef cooked into like a beef stock that's then almost reduced down. So you end up with like it's not just ground beef, it's like a ground beef sauce that is really powerful beef flavor because it's basically like reduced down beef stock. So it's the broth part, the liquid part is beef flavor, the beef is beef flavor, So you end up with like an extremely strong. It doesn't look like there's much of anything on this other than the noodles, but when you bite it, it tastes like a really strong hit of beef. And so that's one of the things I like about this is like that heavy beef flavor. This is typically done with basically kind of spaghetti type noodles. They're not exactly the same as spaghetti, but that's probably the closest Western style noodle to this. It's like the same kind of thickness as a spaghetti noodle. Actually, these are more like a even thinner spaghetti noodle than like a normal spaghetti. But some places might have a slightly thicker one. This is one dish that's interesting to me within Chinese noodles, and that in Italian noodles, typically the preferred way to cook the noodles is al dente, right? So like slightly undercooked so it has a bit of a chew. Most Chinese noodle preparations, that's not you want to cook it thoroughly so it's almost a mushy noodle. That's the preferred way to have a noodle in most Chinese cooking. However, with the Xinjiang, these kind of banmian, Neuro banmian dishes, they almost always do that slightly chewier, slightly undercooked noodle. And that's pretty standard for this style of noodle, which is more similar to like a Western style noodle. And I quite like that. I think that's just something where it's like culturally I grew up with the concept that al dente noodles are better and soft mushier noodles are not as good. So like when they do prepare them somewhat al dente, like I like that better. It doesn't, but that's the thing is like within Chinese cuisine, typically this is considered slightly not as good because they're too chewy. They should be softer. So along with these noodles today, I also got another dish called ro So ro is meat. I think I might have talked about this in my first video that I ever did, the donkey sandwich one. That one was not called this, but I mentioned this dish because the donkey sandwich is very similar to this. So this is called ro Mo is a type of bread. So here we have kind of a they've even put halal on the I didn't know this place did that, but they've written halal on the bread. I like that. So this says Qingzhen, which is halal in Chinese. I didn't know that this place did that. Sorry, that kind of tickled my funny bone there. But so mo is a type of bread. It's like kind of a bread that it's kind of like a hamburger bun style bread. And then jia means to press something between two other things. So, for example, if there are like swinging doors in public, they'll have a sign that says, be careful you don't like get your hand caught between the doors. And that'll be called jia shou. Show his hand. So like, don't crush your hand. And so like, this is meat that's been pressed between two pieces of this bread. So ro jia mo. This is often in English called a Chinese hamburger. The meat in it is not in a patty or anything. It's just chopped up loose meat. But Otherwise, it is similar to a hamburger in that it's, basically a bun with some meat inside. Typically, rojamo is made with pork throughout most of China. However, in the Northwest, where they're more Muslim, and especially here where they're doing it halal, they use beef usually. Occasionally, you'll find one done with lamb. You might find a lamb one, but it's typically done with beef. If it's a Xinjiang or halal restaurant. So, like in the title, it's just called meat between bread, right? Rojamo. And typically in Chinese, when you say meat, it just means pork, right? Pork is kind of the de facto meat in Chinese culture. Every other kind of meat, you usually need to name what animal. You say like Nuro is cow meat, Yangro is sheep meat, Jiro is chicken meat. But if you're talking about pork, you don't need to say. You can say Juro. Ju is pig. You can say pig meat if you want to, but if you just say ro, it also means pig meat. Like it just has that meaning. However, when you get into situations where it's a halal kind of place, or you're in a area of China where it's more Muslim, they tend to just, when they say ro, it typically means beef. They'll usually still say neuro, but something like this, they just called it, where they didn't say neuro jamo, they just said ro jamo. But it's with beef. They won't put pork into it. So some places that do this just have straight meat, chopped up meat. Other places will mix the meat in with some other like veggies. Like I think this probably has some chopped up onion and maybe cilantro and green pepper probably. I'm not sure exactly what's mixed up in this. It might have some cucumber as well, actually. I'm not sure. But it's basically chopped up meat, sometimes mixed together with veggies. This version, I think what they're doing is they probably stewed the meat together with a bunch of veggies until it was all kind of like reduced into almost a sauce where it's all hard to tell any of it apart. Then they slice open this piece of bread, more, and throw the meat inside of it. Another kind of common way of having this is the meat. It can be cooked like in almost like a shawarma style, where they like cook it on a spit and slice the meat off as it cooks. Or sometimes they'll just cook a whole piece of meat and do just with two big knives, just chop it up into small bits. But it's just some kind of chopped up or ground up meat put in between two pieces of bread. It's a very versatile dish that in pretty much every different region of China has a different, like the bread might be different, the meats might be different, the seasoning on the meat might be different. Like there's a million different ways of doing this dish that kind of vary by region. For example, this bread is more of like a kind of just a risen dough that's been cooked into a flatbread and then sliced. But some of them are more, sometimes it'll be more like a flaky, almost pastry-like bread with like laminated dough that's all flaky. Sometimes it'll be more like a thinner, unleavened dough. Like there can be all sorts of different breads they use, and then all sorts of different meat fillings. But it's just meat between two pieces of bread. Or actually, it's usually between one piece of bread that's been sliced in half. Like this isn't two separate pieces of bread. This is a flatbread that's been sliced open. Dog. That is a very common street food. Rodamo is very common as a street food. In the part of China where I'm from, it's not as common. I don't think there's a regional sort of specialty version of this. The versions you get here tend to be from several other regions, and they tend to be at restaurants. So it's not as popular as a street food here in the Northeast where I am. It's more of like a restaurant, kind of takeout restaurant thing. But in all of those restaurants are claiming to be some other regional specialty. And in the regions where this is a specialty dish, it's usually done at just street stalls, at like food stalls on the street. Um, Speaking of, I will point out one linguistic sort of idiosyncrasy here. Mo, the 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 bread is called mo. The pinyin is mo. Um, and if you're looking at it in English, you might think it would be mo, but it's more o. So mo. Um, the that bread is called mo, and then similarly pronounced. I think the tone might be different, but little ground up bits of meat are also called mo. So this is called ro mo, um, or neuro mo. So ground up meat is also uses the same the same sounding word. It's not actually the same word, but so this is rojamo, and the topping on this is called neuro mo. So um, from coming from an English perspective, those two sound kind of similar. But there's a lot of words that are like that where in English it can be hard. So sometimes it'll be a tone difference, like the two words will have a different tone, but to English speakers it can be hard to hear that tone. So we might think they're pronounced the same. And then other times there are words that are the same sound with the same tone, just written differently. Um, and it has different meanings in those kind of things. And there's a lot of so if you think about it from like English pronunciation of words, there's a lot of words in Chinese that are just the same pronunciation over and over means different words. Within Chinese, it's fairly easy to tell them all apart. Like Chinese people don't usually have an issue with it, and once you learn a decent amount of Chinese, it's not really an issue. First, because there's tones which differentiate the sounds, so like you can hear the difference between the words. And then even when things have the same tone, context, right? If I'm talking about a specific context, then it's obvious which meaning of that sound I mean. So like it's usually pretty easy to sort of distinguish all of the things apart. But coming from English, it can be difficult because there seems to be just so many of the same sound that just always means something different. I think I've sort of wrapped up this stuff. So this is my Neuro Banmian and some Rojamo from Xibei, Xinjiang. All right, I'll talk to y'all on the next one.